I've performed to a whole bunch of different audiences. Community theatre crowds, industry professionals, friends, and strangers. But there's one type of audience that always gives me butterflies in an unexpected, very specific way. Young people, students in particular. Now you might be thinking, Ben, that's because students see performers in their schools as weird outsiders. They see you as the period where they get to bludge, to muck up, because they can be unkind, even hostile. And while that might be true, that's not why I hesitate. Students intimidate me as a performer because they are honest. Brutally honest. And today, I want to talk about what I'm most nervous about performing for them, and why that nervousness might actually be the point. If you're new here, hi, my name is Benjamin Webb. I'm an actor, writer, director, and theatre reviewer, and this year I'm joining Poetry in Action on tour, which means that poetry isn't just an idea anymore, it is daily work. I've already talked about why poetry scares me and why I'm doing it anyway, as well as, practically, how I'm learning poetry as an actor, not as a poet. And now we're at the stage where that theory meets practice. Because this year, I'm not performing for community theatre crowds, industry professionals, or friends. I'm performing poetry for school audiences, both junior and senior. And I think that will mean ruckus, boredom, no polite applause out of obligation. Just hundreds of young people deciding in real time whether you're worth their attention. It's high risk, but also high reward. So what am I most nervous about? Well, I can tell you it's not forgetting lines, it's not stamina, it's not the travel, it's not even getting sick, although all of those things are in the back of my mind. I'm nervous about being met with the silence. Oh, not respectful silence, no. That flat silence. Uninterested. Irrelevant. We couldn't be bothered. The kind that says, we don't care. Because poetry demands attention. It asks people to lean in. But what if they don't? You can feel it instantly. Adults will meet you halfway. Students won't. And honestly, I kind of respect that. My hope is that young audiences will surprise me. I've already learned during my time studying to be a secondary drama French teacher that students are far more perceptive than we give them credit for. They're switched on. They know what is real versus what is BS. They clock authenticity in seconds, and to use one of their phrases, they lock in. One of the byproducts of social media is that everyone is presenting themselves all the time, often performing, putting up a front for others. And young people bear witness to that every single day. So, as a performer, if you're pretending to care, they know. If you're overperforming, they know. And if you're trying too hard, they really know. Within this context, I'm not really worried about whether they reject us before we've even started. But what I hope is that they'll be generous, give us grace to show them what we can do, and maybe even teach them a thing or two along the way. I know that when something lands, it'll really land, and they will come along with us completely. They laugh hard, and their silence, while scary, has a way of making you feel electric. And that switch from skeptical to invested happens because of honesty, not polish. That's what I'm aiming for. Speaking of honesty, let's be honest. Not everything works. Not everything I try will work. I'm gonna walk into rooms thinking this is gonna get them so good, and it just won't. I'll lean into humor that felt clever in the rehearsal room, but then halfway through, figure I'm trying too hard. I'll hit emotional beats that feel profound to me and realize that they weren't ready for the wait yet. The biggest thing I've picked up on so far in my preparations is my assumptions. Assuming what they'll relate to, assuming what they'll find funny, and assuming what will move them. One of the actors from last year shared a story that in one of their shows last year, they had a time travel plot and they went forward to the year 2067. During the first half of the year as they were performing, it was normal. Didn't spark a reaction from the students and wasn't intended to. But after the meme of 6-7 happened at the middle of the year, the students couldn't help but make the connection. And they kept cracking up. As actors, in that scenario, when you're faced with two options, you can either change the script to avoid the mix-up altogether, or you can lean into it. What did they do? They leaned into it, and the students loved it. It became both the performers and the students' favourite part of that show, and it was something they could never have found in rehearsals. So, whilst I rehearse, and more importantly when I am performing throughout the year, I will endeavour to check my assumptions, because students don't respond to assumptions. They respond to clarity. If the story is clear, they'll follow. If it's muddy, they won't pretend otherwise. When I was writing this video, this is the part that I didn't expect. The students in my teaching experiences so far have already taught me more about performance than some major training environments. They've taught me that pace matters more than flourish, specificity beats abstraction, and vulnerability beats volume. When I've been brave enough to let a quiet moment breathe in a lesson, instead of rushing to fill it, that's when they pay attention. So, if poetry really is about paying attention, demanding attention, if it really does ask people to lean in, then instead of dumbing it down, I can trust them with the complexity of ideas, the themes, the language, and that'll be when they surprise me. Young audiences don't need things simplified, they need them embodied, and that's an important distinction. Across the year, I'm sure that there will be many moments to remember, and I hope that there will be many moments that are like this. Last week, I had a dream that after a performance whilst on tour, one student hung back. He didn't rush out, didn't joke with his friends, just waited for us to pack up the banners and put the cases away. And then he said something along the lines of, "I didn't think I liked poetry, but that one bit, I liked that." It wasn't dramatic, but it was honest. And that's the honesty I'm talking about when it gets me both nervous and unbelievably excited. It'll remind me and continue to remind me that the goal isn't to impress 200 students and teachers all at once. It's just about reaching someone. Maybe 2, maybe 10, but someone. Performing for students strips you back. You can't rely on reputation, technical jargon, or theatre culture. You have to be clear. You have to be present, and you have to mean what you're saying. It exposes the gap between performance and truth. And that's what I'm most nervous about this year. Not whether I can perform poetry, that's the easy part, but whether I can perform it honestly enough that it matters. It's terrifying but beautiful, because when it works, it doesn't just feel like entertainment, it feels like connection. Next week, before rehearsals properly begin, I want to zoom out one more time. We've talked about fear, we've talked about method, we've talked about nerves in the room. But next week, I want to talk about responsibility. Specifically, as performers, what do we actually owe a young audience when we're performing to them? Because if we're going to stand in front of them with words, especially poetry, I think we owe them more than just energy. If you liked this video, give a like right back to it. Subscribe if you want to see this tour journey unfold as it goes. Come back next week for the video I just said, and be well, stay safe, don't die, and I'll see you next time.